Before we start the episode, I wanted to let everyone know about an upcoming podcast meetup in Washington, D.C. On March 18th, you can come hang out with Once Upon a Crime, Twisted Philly, FBI Retired Case File Review, and Murder Road Trip. We will be at Busboys and Poets, the 5th and K location, from 2 to 5 p.m. We hope to see you there.
I'm pleased to welcome back this week's sponsor, Studio Sweden. I have had my Studio headphones for a couple of weeks now, and I love them. I never leave home without them. Studio is offering Murder Road Trip listeners 15% off any purchase. Just follow the link in the show notes and use the code ROADTRIP. I'll be back to tell you a bit more about Studio later in the show. Welcome to Murder Road Trip. I'm Jess.
And I'm Haley.
We will be snacking on caviar and the world's most expensive sushi roll as we make our way to Miami, Florida to discuss Andrew Cunanan, the killer who became famous for assassinating Gianni Versace.
Jess, what made you pick caviar for today's trip?
As we will find out, Andrew Cunanan was a fan of the finer things in life and ate a lot of expensive food and drank a lot of expensive drinks. And when I think about expensive foods and fancy things, I think caviar. Haley, what made you pick the world's most expensive sushi roll for today's trip?
Well, before I get into that, I want to say thank you for picking caviar. I think it's going to smell so good in the car.
It's gonna be fine. We'll get an air freshener.
Yes, and the world's most expensive sushi roll is only going to help add to that great aroma.
I bet you were longing for the day I was eating a Philly cheesesteak in your car.
So true. I never thought that day would come again. So I picked the world's most expensive sushi roll for today's trip because, like Jess said, Andrew had an obsession with expensive food. And within the expensive food, it seemed like his favorite food to eat was sushi. The world's most expensive sushi roll can be found in Manila in the Philippines, which is ironic because that's where his dad is from. And it's wrapped in gold leaf and topped with caviar, 3 Mikimoto pearls, and served with a diamond, and the meat inside is pink salmon and foie gras. In 2012, it was sold for nearly $396 per piece.
Are you supposed to eat the pearls?
I don't know. That's a really good question. Because what's the point of them? I guess you don't eat them and you put them in your pocket?
Because I'm just like, oh my god, like they must be really soft pearls, otherwise people who eat it have to be rich enough to afford a dentist afterwards.
Right, or you just swallow them like a pill.
True. Haley, what made you pick Andrew Cunanan for today's trip?
So the American cable channel FX recently released the first few episodes of their new series, The Assassination of Gianni Versace, American Crime Story. So if you'll recall, the first season was about O.J. Simpson. So the 9-episode series covers Gianni Versace and his murderer, Andrew Cunanan. When I first heard about the new series, I wanted to know about the man who assassinated the famous fashion designer, and I figured there were other people out there who had the same curiosity. So that curiosity led to this week's episode. We wanted to give a little explanation here for why we're pronouncing the fashion designer's name as Gianni Versace. So when I was doing my research, I realized that you're not supposed to pronounce his name as Gianni Versace, as I so lovingly did my entire life. It's actually pronounced Gianni Versace in Italian, so we thought we would go with that to, kind of honor the correct pronunciation. We'll see if we make it through without saying Gianni Versace.
It's going to be quite tough because I, the same as you, didn't realize that I'd been saying it incorrectly my whole entire life. So it will be quite interesting to see if we slip back into sort of what we know.
Well, if it makes you feel better, the TV show pronounces it incorrectly, so I think we're okay.
It makes me feel very good, actually. Are you ready to go?
I'm ready.
We lost the station again.
Keep trying.
I'm safe.
Hold on. Let me try this one.
Stop.
Turn it up.
Andrew Philip Cunanan was born on the 31st of August 1969 in National City, California, which is just outside of San Diego. He was the youngest of 4 children. He spent the first 9 years of his childhood in National City with his mum, Marianne, and dad, Modesto, who was also known as Pete, and his 3 older siblings, Christopher, Elena, and Regina. Marianne was of Italian heritage, and Pete was Filipino. Andrew was raised in the Roman Catholic faith, and at one point Andrew wanted to become a minister. As the youngest child, Andrew was very spoiled, and it was clear that he was the favourite of the 4 children. However, Andrew's childhood was not a happy one. Pete, a naval hospital corpsman, was known to have a terrible temper. Pete was abusive towards Marianne, constantly accusing her of cheating on him. Marianne had depression and spent money as a means of coping, which led Pete to work extra jobs so they could make ends meet. Andrew went to school in the Chula Vista City School District. He was an avid reader, and when he was in the 3rd grade he was given an IQ test. The test showed that his IQ was 147, which is genius level, and he was entered into the gifted program.
In 1972, Pete left the Navy, and in June, the family moved to Bonita, California, where they would stay for the next 10 years. In 1979, Pete began working as a stockbroker, and in 1982, the family moved to Rancho Bernardo, California. From 1983 to 1987, Andrew went to Bishop Episcopal High School, which was a private school in La Jolla, California. In high school, he became fluent in French and Spanish and excelled in all of his subjects aside from math. Despite his intelligence, Andrew only put an effort into the classes that he enjoyed. The teachers and other students said they thought Andrew felt entitled and said he acted like he had lots of money when in reality he had grown up quite poor.
Something his peers liked about him was his openness about his sexuality. Andrew was openly gay. He was said to have feminine mannerisms and voice patterns. His mum said she always knew deep down that he was gay, but wasn't completely positive until he was 16.
Right after Andrew graduated from high school, his dad left the family. According to Marianne, Pete lost his stockbroker job because he was caught embezzling over $100,000 from various companies. Pete fled the U.S. to the Philippines in order to avoid arrest, leaving his wife and 4 grown children behind. This is only Marianne's account, and it cannot be confirmed by any other sources. In the midst of his father moving away, Andrew was just starting college. He studied history at the University of California in San Diego for a year before he dropped out and went to the Philippines. Some people say he went to follow his dad there and try to find him, and others believe he went there as a missionary. Either way, Andrew would only end up staying for a month before returning to San Diego.
There are few details known about Andrew's life from when he returned to the United States until he started killing. What is known is that Andrew worked as a manager at a thrifty drugstore in Rancho Bernardo, and then as an office worker in San Francisco. Andrew dated wealthy men, and a friend said that was so they could support Andrew. The men that Andrew dated would shower him with gifts, and would take him on lavish trips around the world, and Andrew played the part. He loved being the centre of attention. His appearance was always impeccable, dressed in the best designer brands. He ate and drank only the best food and wine. All the while he was dating these men who spoiled him so much, Andrew was actually quite a loner. He had a lot of acquaintances, but not many real friends. He rarely contacted his family, and he would fall off the face of the planet and not speak to people for several months. While Andrew was popular and had many acquaintances, he was also a pathological liar. He constantly lied about who he really was, what he did, and where he came from. He had many aliases, and no one actually knew the real Andrew. Andrew went by the name Andrew De Silva in an attempt to associate himself with an extremely wealthy family. He also went by Drew Cunningham and Kurt Damas. He would put on a different name and persona based upon the people he happened to be around at the time. In the research, it became clear that no one really knew the real Andrew. Dozens of people were interviewed about him, and everyone said something different. The only consistency was related to how he dressed and had a taste for the finer things. He had created a different character to use with each of his acquaintances. There was always a lot of mystery around Andrew, and people often wondered how he got the money to dress so nicely and to party it up when he was single. Some people said he got it from his parents, while others made more wild speculations about another secret life as a drug dealer, a male sex worker, or a mafia member.
A few months before the murders, Andrew made some changes in his life. He cut his hair, gained weight, and stopped dressing nicely. He also stopped spending money, almost as if his cash source had suddenly ceased. Friends said that he just wasn't himself anymore, and they weren't surprised when Andrew announced that he was moving to San Francisco because he was bored with his current situation. But Andrew didn't intend to go straight to San Francisco. He planned on going to Minneapolis, Minnesota first to visit friends. Andrew said he had business to settle with his friend Jeff, and he would be visiting his friend David for personal reasons. Andrew left San Diego on the 25th of April, 1997, bound for Minnesota with a one-way ticket. I just want to pause for a second and say that this one-way ticket, to me, definitely shows premeditation, because he lied to everyone saying he was moving to San Francisco, but then he bought a one-way ticket to Minnesota. So to me, it seems like he's not coming back.
Yeah, I had the same thought when I was writing the script as well, and I wrote that part and thought, why would he go with a one-way ticket if he had actually planned on returning? Because, I mean, nowadays, you probably would, because you'd get a cheap last-minute flight on the internet, but this is 1997. I don't think travel and the internet was that, snap your fingers and you can do it. There definitely had to be some planning there. Jeffrey Allen Trail was born to parents Stanley and Anne, who were both educators, and raised in DeKalb, Illinois, along with his 4 siblings. Jeffrey attended the U.S. Naval Academy in Annapolis and graduated in 1991. Jeffrey served in the Gulf War and ended up being stationed in San Diego. He left the Navy in 1996. While in San Diego, Jeffrey met Andrew and the two became friends. According to some reports, the pair may have been in a relationship. However, other reports say they were just friends. The pair had a falling out, allegedly over drugs, as Jeffrey was very anti-drug, and it was rumoured that Andrew may have been dealing. After the falling out, Jeffrey picked up and moved to Minneapolis to be a propane salesman, leaving behind his recent California Highway Patrol training. When Jeffrey moved to Minneapolis, he reconnected with an acquaintance, David Madsen.
David John Madsen was born on the 16th of October, 1963, to parents Howard and Carol. He grew up in Barron, Wisconsin, with his parents and 3 siblings. David went to the University of Minnesota, Duluth, for his undergraduate, and to the University of Minnesota, Minneapolis, for his graduate studies. He became an architect and began working for the John Ryan Company. David met Andrew in a bar in California in late 1995, and the pair became romantically involved. Andrew was infatuated with David, to the point of obsession. Andrew allegedly proposed, but David rejected his offer. The pair broke up in early 1996, but remained friends after. Jeffrey and David's friendship grew when Jeffrey moved to Minneapolis, and they saw each other regularly, although allegedly just as friends.
On the 25th of April 1997, David went to dinner with a friend, Monique Salvetti, who was also a friend of Andrew's. Monique recalls talking to David on the following 2 days, the 26th and 27th of April. On the evening of the 27th of April, a neighbour reported hearing weird noises in David's apartment. This is what is believed to have happened, using information pieced together from what the neighbours heard and what the evidence pointed to. Andrew had arrived in Minneapolis and was staying at David's apartment. Jeffrey had made plans to meet up with Andrew on the night of the 27th. It's believed that Jeffrey entered David's apartment around 9:45. A neighbour heard someone say, "Get the fuck out," followed by thuds and the walls shaking for 30 to 45 seconds. The neighbour went to look in the hallway, but no one was there, so they went back into their apartment. The neighbour then heard running water coming from the apartment, perhaps the sound of someone washing up.
The next day, Andrew and David were seen at David's apartment building walking his dog. Andrew and David were seen together multiple times, and David always looked very nervous, as if he was unhappy and unable to leave, like he was being held hostage. On Monday, the 28th of April, David failed to show up at work. So on the 29th of April, David's workplace contacted the apartment caretaker to ask them to check on David. After all, David hadn't shown up to work for the past 2 days, and that was unlike him. The caretaker went to check the apartment and was met with the sight of blood on the floor and a rolled-up rug. They left and called the police. When the police arrived, they discovered that there was a body rolled up in the rug, but it wasn't David's, it was Jeffrey's. Police also found a claw hammer with blood on it in a gym bag with Andrew's name on it. Inside the gym bag was an empty gun holster and a box of .40 caliber bullets, but no gun. The autopsy performed on Jeffrey showed that his time of death coincided with the time his watch stopped, 9:55 p.m. on the 27th of April. At this point, the police issued an arrest warrant for Andrew for second-degree murder.
On the 3rd of May, 2 fishermen spotted something on the shoreline of East Rush Lake. It was the body of David Madsen. The fishermen called the police, who determined that David had been killed on the 2nd of May, the day prior to the discovery. Police found vehicle tracks near the grass where David was found, and it appeared that the vehicle had pulled into the area, driven in a circle, and then back out. 2 empty .40 caliber casings were found in the grass. David's autopsy showed that he had defensive wounds on his hands, as if he put his hands up to block the bullets. Police theorized that Jeffrey went to David's apartment and an argument ensued. Andrew then hit Jeffrey in the head with the claw hammer until he was dead. Then, police believe David walked into his own apartment and saw Jeffrey dead and Andrew the culprit. Andrew gained emotional control over David, and they both wrapped Jeffrey in the rug to make it easier to live in the apartment with a dead body. Andrew stole Jeffrey's .40 caliber gun from his holster after murdering him, and held David hostage until the 2nd of May, when Andrew took David to East Rush Lake and shot him twice. After murdering David, Andrew took David's Jeep and headed to Chicago, where he would kill his 3rd victim.
Lea Albert Miglin was born in Illinois on the 12th of July, 1924. He grew up in Westville, Illinois, with his coal miner father George, his mother Anna, and his 7 siblings. Lea went to the Gallagher School of Business, served in the Air Corps for part of World War II, and then earned a journalism degree at the University of Illinois. Lea formed a real estate development company, Miglin Beitler Development, in 1982. This made Lea very wealthy. Lea married Marilyn, a model and cosmetic store owner, and the pair were married for 38 years. They had 2 children and lived in Chicago. On the 4th of May, 1997, a little after 2 p.m., 70-year-old Lea was cleaning in his garage when Andrew showed up. There was no sign that Andrew forced his way in, leading police to believe that they either knew each other or that it was a surprise attack. Lea was found with his hands and feet bound, his face wrapped in tape with holes for his nose, and stabbed to death with a bow saw. His throat was also slashed.
Lea was due to pick up his wife Marilyn from the airport, and when he didn't show up, she made her own way home. Marilyn found the house was a mess, as if someone had been through it and ransacked it. She called the police, who arrived and searched the house and garage. Police found Lee's body under a car. A trash can had been placed in front of the car in an attempt to hide the body. When police searched the house for evidence, they found that Andrew had showered, shaved, and eaten in Lee's house, before stealing a gold coin and leaving in Lee's Lexus. David's Jeep was found around the corner from Lee's house. It's not clear why Lea was targeted by Andrew. Some say they knew each other from Andrew's profession as a male sex worker, while others say that Andrew knew Lee's son Duke, who was an actor living in California. The family insists that there was no connection, and that the killing was random. Police theorize that Andrew may have found Lee's house at random because it was within a block of a nightclub that Andrew had been at the night before. While Andrew had a gun and ammo, he stabbed Lea. Police believe this is because of the proximity of the neighbours. A gunshot would have been easily heard and would have been noticed. Police issued a warrant for Andrew's arrest on the grounds of first-degree murder and armed robbery. Meanwhile, Andrew was in Lee's Lexus, making his way to New York, where he would stay for a few days until he plotted his next move.
William R. Reese was born on the 4th of March, 1952, in Vineland, New Jersey. Not much is known about his early life, but as an adult he married his wife Rebecca, and together they had a son, Troy. The family were devout Christians, and in his spare time, William attended Civil War reenactments. William trained as an electrician, but didn't follow that career path. He instead became a federal employee at the National Cemetery on Fort Mott State Park grounds in nearby Pennsville, New Jersey. William had worked at the cemetery for 20 years. On the 9th of May, 1997, Andrew was driving in New Jersey. He took an exit and found his way to Fort Mott State Park, which was a secluded area that didn't get many visitors. Reese was working in the basement of the cemetery office building alone. Andrew entered the building and made his way to the basement. He must have been very quiet because Reese didn't turn around and was shot once in the back of the head. Then Andrew left, locking the basement door behind him. Reese was murdered between 5:30 and 6:25 p.m. However, his wife called around 5 p.m. and didn't get an answer, so he may have been killed before the phone call. Reese's wife then called the police, who arrived at around 6:30 p.m. and found his body.
Andrew left Lee's Lexus in the parking spot next to Reese's red Chevy truck and took the truck. Andrew then drove to New York, where he stayed for a few days before heading to South Carolina. While in South Carolina, he stole South Carolina license plate tags off a car in a Kmart parking lot. He then drove to Miami, Florida, and on the 12th of May, he rented a room at the Miami Beach Normandy Plaza Hotel, where he stayed until he committed his final murder. At one point, Andrew pawned the gold coin he stole from Lea Miglin. The pawn shop took his fingerprints, and Andrew even used his real name. This was before automated systems, so police were not immediately alerted to Andrew's location. A month later, on the 12th of June 1997, Andrew was put on the FBI's most wanted list, and a $10,000 reward was offered for anyone who could provide information that led authorities to Andrew. During this time, Andrew was living only 4 miles away from his fifth victim, Gianni Versace.
And now, a quick word from our sponsor.
My Studio headphones arrived so quickly, I was surprised at how fast they got here. I got the Studio Tray headphones, which are specially shaped to ensure the earbuds wouldn't fall out. I was dubious, since I've never met a pair of earbuds that don't fall out the second I move. I took my Studio Tray headphones for a test run at the gym, and they stayed put the whole time. I forgot I was wearing them. They are so lightweight, comfortable, and discreet. The sound quality is amazing, whether I'm listening to podcasts, music, or talking on the phone. Make sure that you take advantage of their special offer for Murder Road Trip listeners. Just go to studiosweden.com and enter Road Trip to receive 15% off any purchase. That's Studio Sweden, SUDIO Sweden.com, and enter Road Trip.
And now, back to the show.
Gianni Versace was born on the 2nd of December, 1946, in Reggio de Calabria. His parents were Francesca, who was a dressmaker, and Antonio, who was a merchant. Gianni had 3 siblings, Tina, who died at a young age, Santo, and Donatella. Gianni worked at his mother's dress shop as an intern before moving to Milan in the early 1970s to work in fashion design. In 1978, Gianni opened his first boutique, Gianni Versace S.p.A. in Milan. In 1982, Gianni met model Antonio D'Amico, and the pair were together until Gianni's death. Gianni became famous and would go on to win an American Fashion Oscar in 1993. He designed clothes for Elton John, Jennifer Lopez, Princess Diana, and many more. In 1994, Gianni designed Elizabeth Hurley's dress for the premiere of 4 Weddings and a Funeral, which is a dress that is still talked about to this day and even has its own Wikipedia page. It is known as the safety pin dress because the sides were held together with gold safety pins. This was the dress that made Versace a household name.
On the 15th of July 1997, after walking to a nearby newsstand, 50-year-old Gianni arrived back at his Miami Beach house at around 8:45 a.m. Johnny was trying to unlock the front gate when Andrew approached him from behind. Andrew fired 2 shots into Johnny's head before fleeing to a nearby parking garage and returning to the stolen red truck that he had parked there 3 weeks prior. Andrew changed his clothes and left the ones he had been wearing next to the truck, along with his ID, passport, and other important documents, before leaving the area on foot. Johnny's partner Antonio was inside the house when he heard the shots ring out. He rushed outside only to see the love of his life bleeding out on the ground. Gianni Versace was rushed to the University of Miami Jackson Memorial Hospital, where he was later pronounced dead.
When police arrived at the scene, they found a dead white bird next to Johnny's body. A dead white bird next to a body is often a symbol of an execution performed by the mafia. The dead bird only played into the theory that Andrew was in the mafia, but it was later determined that the bird was simply caught in the crossfire and nothing more. It is unclear how Andrew knew Versace. No one knows for sure, but there are some possible theories. A friend told the FBI that Andrew may have met Johnny while at an opera in San Francisco in 1990. Another friend said that Andrew was seen with Johnny at a club once. Yet another friend said that in 1992, Andrew applied for a modeling job with Versace, but was not successful in his endeavor. This only goes to show that 3 friends that thought they knew Andrew had completely different stories.
Yeah, it really makes it clear how much of a pathological liar he was, that he had 3 stories for 3 different friends, and he may have had more stories with more friends, we just don't know.
After the murders, Andrew sent multiple emails to news sources, telling them where he was and confessing to the murder of Gianni Versace. The email said that he was in New York City, not Florida, and that his next victim would be someone big in New York. The emails were taunting and said that Andrew wanted to be a star and would be one. He also gave himself a nickname, the 40 Killer, referencing the .40 caliber bullets used to kill 3 of his victims. Andrew also contacted a friend to help him get a fake passport so he could flee the country.
On the 23rd of July 1997, Andrew was on a houseboat in Miami, less than 3 miles from where he had last been seen at Johnny's house. The caretaker of the houseboat boarded the vessel and heard a gunshot. He fled and called the police. Police arrived and found Andrew's body in the upstairs bedroom, with the .40 caliber gun that he had stolen from Jeffrey Trail next to his body. There was no suicide note. An autopsy conducted on the 24th of July confirmed that the death was due to a self-inflicted gunshot wound. On a little side note, the houseboat's caretaker received the $10,000 reward offered by the FBI. Andrew was entered into a mausoleum at Holy Cross Cemetery in San Diego.
There is no official reason or consensus on what caused Andrew to go on a murder spree. There are a couple of possibilities, though. Shortly before Andrew left San Diego and began the spree killings, Andrew told people that he was HIV positive. He told an AIDS counselor that if he ever found out who gave him HIV, he would get back at them. However, the autopsy revealed that there was no HIV or AIDS virus in Andrew's system. Another possible motive was that he decided to go after people that wronged him, such as Jeff and David. And a third theory is that because Andrew was a narcissist, he didn't like being told no and couldn't handle it when people didn't give him what he wanted. Perhaps he killed Jeff and David because he wanted something from them that they weren't willing to give. It is widely agreed that Lee and Reese's murders weren't motivated by anything except wanting their cars. One creepy thing that many acquaintances told the FBI is that when he was annoyed, Andrew would say that he wanted to go, quote, on a 5-state killing spree, end quote. It's always creepy when somebody says something in passing or as a joke that later turns out to be true.
You have to wonder if that was kind of, his plan and at the back of his mind that would be something that he would do and how long he'd been thinking about it. It does make you wonder. So you said that it's widely agreed that Lee and Reese were only murdered for their cars. I mean, he didn't have to kill them. If you go up to someone with a gun and say, give me your car keys, they are going to give you their car keys. put a mask on if you're worried about being identified. He didn't have to kill them, and that just, I suppose, annoys me because all of the murders were senseless and wrong. Those two just really, I don't know, I don't even know what I'm trying to say, but they just didn't have to happen.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And my only thinking is that he wasn't thinking about that. He was only thinking about himself and protecting himself. And so the ultimate way to protect yourself in his mind was to kill them, because then there was no way they could identify him.
Yeah, it just grinds my gears.
So Jess, what theory do you think best fits this case?
I really don't know. I don't think we'll ever know, and because he was such a pathological liar, it just makes it so much harder to pin down a really good theory about what happened, because so many people knew different sides of him, and I don't think we've got the full picture. And without that full picture, I don't think it's really possible to know or even guess what could possibly have been his motive or what set him off.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that really bothers people about this case, is that he didn't leave any type of note, which is shocking to me, because you'd think that he would want that last bit of fame or that last bit of time to lie about himself, make up some elaborate story about how Johnny wronged him, and there's no one to corroborate that because both people involved would have been dead. I don't know, I'm just fascinated by his need to end his life without leaving a note.
I agree that it seems out of character for him not to leave a note, especially because he was sending the emails and taunting newspapers and things with information. You'd think he would want to have the last word, and he didn't.
To end the episode, would you like to play a road trip game?
Okay, no, that's cool. Yep, let's go. Let's do it.
So we're going to play a game about the world's most expensive foods. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a little bit of background on the food, and then I'm going to ask you how much you think it's worth. Up first, we have the ruby Roman grapes. They're grown in Japan, and they're red in color. They're about the size of a ping pong ball, and they're the most expensive type of grape. There are a set of standards that each grape must meet before it is sold, and according to Wikipedia, the standards are that each grape must be over 20 grams and over 18% in sugar, and the standards are really difficult to meet. For example, in July of 2016, only 26 grapes met the standards. How much do you think the bunch of grapes sold for?
So, something that we are learning about me today is that I watch those BuzzFeed Worth It videos when I can't sleep, and they did a Worth It video with those exact grapes. And when they did the video, I think it was quite recently though, they were about $2,000 for the whole bunch of grapes. So I'm going to go around $2,000.
So these grapes, I think maybe because there were more of them and it was a different time, 26 grapes sold for $8,400, which ends up being about $323 per grape.
No grape is worth that much. I like grapes. I think that they are fantastic. That's crazy.
So would you eat a ruby Roman grape if you had the chance? Not if you had to pay for it, but if somebody gave it to you, do you think you would eat one?
Absolutely. I would love to try one. I bet it tastes amazing, but only if it was free. I think it would taste worse if I had to pay for it, because I'd be really bitter about having to pay $300 for a grape.
Right. The second one is the ayam cemoni chicken. It's originally from Indonesia, and the entire exterior is black. Literally everything. The comb, the eyes, the feathers, skin, feet, beak, literally everything on this chicken is black. And even its insides are black. Its organs, bones, and meat are black as well. And hyperpigmentation is what causes this. In August of 2013, the going rate for one chicken was how much money?
Oh, $300?
I wish. $2,500.
Okay. It's a chicken. Just, like, food's expensive here, but, like, I can get a whole chicken for, like, $5 at the supermarket. I have got food colouring. I can make it happen. I've actually just Googled it because I just kind of wanted to see an all black chicken, because like I've got a chicken, one of my chickens is like black, but her comb and stuff is red. And it says here the meat doesn't taste any different. It's just chicken.
This really does go to show that if you like make a big deal about something and say that it's rare, that you can charge a lot of money. Would you eat an I Am Simone chicken if you had the chance?
I don't know. I think I would want to, but I don't know if I could get past, because I'm looking at the pictures now of like just like the chicken meat, and I don't know if I could get past it unless I had pretended it was already marinated in something. So mine's a firm maybe.
All right, so our third one is moose cheese. You heard that right, moose. So this cheese is made in Sweden at the Elk House farm, and they call it the Elk House because moose are known as elk in some places. So the cheese is created from moose milk, and the farm only has 3 milk-producing moose. So that's what makes this like so expensive and valuable, is that they only have the 3 milk-producing moose, and their milk yields a total of only 300 kilograms of cheese per year. In 2013, 1 pound of the cheese went for what price?
I don't know. $700.
You're close. It was $300.
Oh, okay. I wasn't that close.
Well, I mean, I'm trying to be
okay,
nice.
all right. Thanks, Hayley. I was close.
Would you eat the moose cheese if you had the chance?
Bring it. I love cheese.
Me too. I was thinking that too. I was like, I really want to go to Sweden. Maybe I'll plan my trip around this place.
I think it would be one of those things that you just have to try. And because I've just Google imaged the cheese, it just looks like cheese. So, I mean, it's not like there'd be any weird visual things like there was with the chicken. Yeah, I'd eat it.
So our fourth one is the white truffle. It's mostly found in Italy. It's a fungi that grows underground near the base of oak trees. To find the truffles, they use trained truffle-sniffing dogs or pigs, and the truffles are only available a few times a year. Some chefs refer to white truffles as the diamond of the kitchen. So that's a little background. In 2017, 1 pound of white truffles went for what price? This is a pound, so that's quite a bit.
It would be something insane, because I think the individual truffles are like a few $100s each, if not more than that. So I'm going to go something crazy like $10,000.
So I'm sure it could get up to that price. I just have the least price. So the truffles go for at least $2,800 a pound.
It's still very expensive.
So if you had the opportunity, would you eat a white truffle?
Oh yeah, I love truffle stuff. Like, you can generally only get the oil, although I was at a restaurant once and they like actually had like truffle like grated on the fries. It was so good. That was the most expensive order of fries I've ever had. It was so nice. So yeah, I definitely would. But it wasn't the white truffle, it was the black truffle, which I think is more common.
It's still expensive though. All right, so our last food item is one that I am definitely going to butcher the name of. It is the Jamón Ibérico de Bellota. So you're welcome. It's a black Iberian pig that's mostly found in Spain and Portugal. So after weaning, the piglets are given barley and maize for weeks to fatten them. Then the pigs are allowed to feed naturally on grass, herbs, acorns, and roots. And then when slaughtering time approaches, the pigs are given only acorns of the best quality to eat. And then after the pigs are slaughtered, they're salted and left to dry for 2 weeks. They're rinsed and left to dry for another 4 to 6 weeks, and then they're cured for at least 36 months. In the late 2000s, how much did a pound of this cured ham cost? So this is a price of like if you were going to buy a ham at the store, it's usually, I don't know how much it is, like $1 a pound. How much do you think this ham costs per pound?
Just for some context, a pound of ham is like $5 here. I'm going to go $94 a pound.
You're close. It's $87.
That was pretty close. That was pretty good.
Yeah, so at first I was like, that's not very expensive at all. And then I realized that they're talking about how you have to buy like a log of ham or something. And I was like, oh, it can cost thousands of dollars when you go to like actually buy this ham. So would you eat this ham if you had the chance? Not going to say the name of it again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Stick it on there with the mousse cheese and a bit of truffle on top. I'd have a very nice lunch.
And a grape for dessert.
And a grape for dessert. No, none of that chicken though. I'm a little bit weirded out by that.
Until next time, please remember to check your back seats, and I'll see you at the next rest stop.
We would like to give a huge thank you to our content editor, Laura Taylor. If you didn't already know, you can also listen to Hayley on the We're All Just Pretending podcast, where she gives bad advice, on purpose.
You can also find Jess and me on the Playlist podcast. Playlist is a podcast where Josh Hallmark of Our Americana and the Karen and Ellen Letters has different podcasters on to talk about their favorite songs. Every podcast has a different theme and a new panel of podcasters.
You can find Murder Road Trip at murderroadtrip.com, on Instagram and Twitter at murdertrip, and on Facebook at Murder Road Trip Podcast. If you're interested in continuing the discussion, you can join the Murder Road Trip podcast group on Facebook. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to rate, review, and subscribe on your podcast app of choice.